everyone, and welcome to our YouTube channel, Moneyline with Nancy at TV. In case you're not a subscriber yet, please do subscribe. Just press the subscribe button as well as turn on the notification bell so that you can get notifications when we upload our videos. Don't also forget to subscribe and join, follow, like our other social media platforms. Of course, you're seeing it right about now. Don't also forget to share this video across your platforms. Enjoy the video. All right, welcome back to the program. Joining me right now is Seun Onigbinde. He's the co-founder and director at BudgIT. Hello, Seun. Welcome to the program.
It's a pleasure being here, Nancy. Thank you so much for inviting me here.
Yes. How is Abidjan? Have you left?
I've not. I'm leaving a few hours. Thank you so much.
Okay, so let's just really get into it. What is your own assessment of President Tinubu's midterm presidency, perhaps in terms of economic reforms, governance, and let me also put it this way, institutional credibility?
Yeah, I mean, he came in a very difficult time. The previous government made the economy much difficult because of certain practices around the subsidy, around the management of the economy, the management of the exchange rate. And I think the previous presidential candidates, all of them, either Vice President Atiku Abubakar or even Mr. Peter Obi, they made it clear that they were going to remove fuel subsidy and they were also going to work towards the exchange rate parity. I think he has taken those bold decisions, and I think those decisions also have significant consequences. As we heard from the Vox Pop, there's significant hardship being faced by Nigerians in the last 2 years. So if you take a poll of the majority of Nigerians, you will hear that this has been a very, very tough time for them. Were those reforms required? Were they necessary? Yes, I agree that those reforms were necessary. Were they sequenced? Were they put in a structured way? Was a palliative structure defined before those decisions were made? I don't think so. So I feel like a lot of Nigerians have gone through maybe a needless and painful period in the last 2 years. So in terms of governance, some things are good. I feel like, there's a significant push for taxation reform. So what we've seen, even though that has been weakened by the National Assembly and with the negotiation and the politicking, but at least we have a more reformed and taxation system that we can build on. So I think I would give him kudos on that. The other part is also look at the oil and gas industry. The efforts of the minister and also the special advisor to the president, Mrs. Oluverejen, you will see that there's been increased interest to provide incentives and improve coordination in the oil and gas industry, something we didn't have in the previous administration. So I think he would pat himself on the back in those directions, the taxation reform, which is to gear up our revenues and also improving the fiscal environment for our oil and gas industry. I don't think he's made significant strides in either in the social sector, either education, either health. The promises, the opportunities that have been unlocked, but they have not gotten traction as one would expect them to be. And also, if you look at the investment climate, there's more interest to bring more money to Nigeria. First, you see the treasury bills and the bonds of the federal government. The coupons are reflective of the environment, so it's become more appetizing. It's more exciting for most institutional investors. You also look at the exchange rate. The stock market. The stock market has also found its leap, one of its biggest leap in recent years. And so it's been a mixed bag for him. I think if he had done more work in terms of fiscal efficiency and has also sequenced and structured some of these interventions. And because we didn't need to wait a year plus to negotiate the minimum wage. One of those things created a lot of delay and it created significant challenges for most Nigerians. And also, people are not seeing cost savings or efficiency to signal that the government is also taking part of the brunt. We're bearing part of the brunt with them. So those are the issues that you find. In terms of institutional credibility, yes, I mean, I think more of what you see is that the government is not transparent as it should be. There needs to be more transparency. The simple issue is the issue of the recent debt by the government to take on $21.4 billion approval from National Assembly for a medium-term period. More details should have been provided ahead on what is the use of those funds so that Nigerians can interrogate and engage if those things are actually necessary or not. So more transparency, the open government partnership, there's not been significant involvement in all of that. The public budgets are not even published on time as they should. So I feel there's a lot of ways they can do better. And also if you look at democratic space, it's been much more heightened. What we had in Rivers was not supposed to happen, was highly unfortunate. And those are the things that add more premiums when people think about us, Nigeria, as an investment climate.
Okay, now that you've brought us to the point of this MTF borrowing rolling plan of $21 billion, let's dwell there a bit. Of course, you are into fiscal governance. What do you have to say about that? Because you actually mentioned perhaps more engagement and more communication around that. We've seen that, you know, the intention to request for such an amount from the National Assembly has caused some kind of uproar around the country. What do you think? Can you make our viewers understand the president's intention to do this? And I must say, it's MTF, medium-term expenditure framework, of course, within 3 years. But the Tinubu is actually saying, or even his media center is saying, oh, that the media is spreading fake news and all of that. Seun, can you break this down for us? And I would also ask my team to put the card on air so that people can actually also understand from the president's perspective what he intends, what that $21 billion was about. So over to you, Seun.
I mean, we have to interrogate that. When President Muhammadu Buhari left office, when he came into office, Nigeria's external debt was around $7.34 billion. When he left office, his external debt rose to $37.2 billion. And that is not the whole external debt of the country. That is the external debt for the federal government only. So around $30 billion were incurred in a 8-year period. The question we have asked people is that where was $30 billion spent? Because if you are taking in domestic debt, it might not be this heightened. You know, you possibly inflation tends to discount that in the long run. But if you're taking external debt, there's a significant currency risk, devaluation risk that you are flirting with. And so even if, no matter how generous that debt is today or how that loan is today, if you don't apply it properly, if you don't invest it in self-liquidating assets, or you don't invest it in FX-generating vehicles, you will have challenges in the future because you are, what has been saving us in terms of servicing all of these debts is just because we have a hydrocarbon resource that is priced in dollars, and we're able to use the receipts of all of that to service the external debt. If we didn't have oil, hydrocarbon receipts priced in dollars, I'm sure we will have been more reasonable, and we will have been much more circumspect when it comes to, you know, these overly exciting external debt offerings. And my first point is that people should understand that the federal government does not go back to the executive does not go back to the National Assembly every period that he wants to borrow money. What they get is they get an MTF approval, which is $21.4 billion has been sought. Once the approval is set, that's the approval that is baked into a quarterly deficit plan. So you have an annual deficit plan, and it's that plan that you now say, okay, we've gotten $21 billion. We'll put $10 billion this year. We'll put another $10 billion next year, and we'll make adjustments in that regard. It does not mean that all of that money would be sourced. It does not mean, but you have an approval, which is more like you have a check. You are now choosing to either cash it or not. My question is that we don't need to $21 billion, even if that was the original intention of the MTF. 2025 to 2027. But now we have sky-high revenues coming into the federal government. Now we have even subsidy being removed, so we have significant savings from all of that. Now we have oil productions is shooting up into the 1.5 million barrels per day corridor. So we have all the macroeconomic and the revenue indices popping up. So the question is that it also means that we have to start dialing down on some of these expenses. And also even in this plan includes states. States for what? Because we have seen states taking external debt for ridiculous things. And most of the times, there is no strategic delivery for some of these projects. At the end of the day, Kaduna State has been hooked on this Zaria water project for almost like a decade now. And people will come back again and continuously, and you are told, oh, we have 10-year or 25-year moratorium. But the reality is that at some point you are still going to pay back that debt. You are going to pay back that debt at maybe 3 or 4x the value of which you have received today, because you have cured currency devaluation in the long run. So external debt is something we have to be very careful about, not just because it exists, must mean that we must take them. I can understand in the previous government, they made some very reckless decision, which was about, they were using some of those debts, those 30 billion that I mentioned, they were using it for reserve management. So it was used to just cushion up reserves and meeting payments just because we had low oil production. We couldn't bring oil production to the table. Just because also the way we were stubborn on the price, on the currency price, there was a currency mispricing. But now we are saying that we have a 23 billion net FX reserve, so which means CBN is telling us that they are very liquid. So definitely we don't even need some of this funding to really, do any reserve management or currency pricing. We already said we've left those things mostly to the market. So I feel there has to be some intellectual conversation, debate from the national. This is where the National Assembly needs to call experts in, needs to scrutinize the borrowing item by item and be sure that they are doing two things. Are they self-liquidating assets? One, are we investing in things that will generate FX market? For example, we took some loans from the AFDB to build special agricultural processing zones. And I like that because if we are deliberate about that and we invest in that on the long term, these areas begin to generate agricultural produce that can be processed and can be exported. Then we generate FX earnings in return. And those are the kind of things we need to take note of. Not someone wants to fix education program in the state or wants to distribute mosquito nets and they are saying, oh, because that loan exists somewhere at a very discounted, cheap amount, then we go and start launching after it. Those things have significant consequences in the long run.
So why do you think that it generated the kind of furore that it did? Because I was reading something that one of the media aides to the president wrote, was it yesterday or so, and saying that, oh, it's clear that the journalists at the National Assembly need to be more educated on issues like this. What do you have to say about that? To be able to do a better reportage of it. If for me, myself, I even had, a bash from social media. Was it yesterday or 2 days ago?
We all did, but your points are valid, and I think you should not.
And people were like, why was I was like, guys, I've been doing this for a long time, and you shouldn't put me into your political propaganda, or for those that, that the president can never do wrong. So I'm not known for politics. I'll just state the fact as it is. No matter who is president, I don't carry any party. I don't even support any party. Nothing concerns me and them. We're talking about facts, and I've been doing this for long.
My honesty is that you don't apologize for those positions.
I'm not even apologizing for that. I'm just trying to say that people should also understand.
Because it's an MTEF requirement. I've explained it. Yes. The MTEF requirement is a medium-term plan. Unless we agree, it's a rolling plan. So maybe even you could require 21 billion this year, you could come back next year and say you want to dial that money down to 15 billion for another 3 years. Or you could go back again 3 years and say, I want to up it. So it's a plan that is in flux. That's the first thing we must know. So it's not even a static plan. It's a rolling plan. The first thing we must understand about MTEF. So it's 2025 to 2027. Next is 2026 to 2027. What I'm saying is that in 2025 to 2027, I'm projecting a $21 billion I'm requesting for a license to borrow that money in a 3-year plan. That's what I'm requesting for. And if National Assembly gives it to me, and then the money is available, I can take it. I might choose not to take it. But what has been evident, I've shown, is also people would likely take that money because they might not take it at that scale because, number one, some of them are their commitments already. And some of them, they would, even if there's no money, there's an opportunity to go and talk to Eurobonds and go and take it 8, 9, 12% Eurobond fund and say, okay, because we want to do what? That's why beyond the amount, the purpose has to also be very clear. And I think that's where we have to be. A lot of people did hypotheticals that they said, oh, if we borrow this whole amount, it raises our public debt. Because we have to be careful. If you waste public resource like future oil earnings, yeah, that's bad. But if you waste taxes, it's the earning of the president, that's bad. But if you start borrowing money and you start wasting public debt, you are putting a lot of burden on future earnings that you have not even gotten because those debts will be serviced, they will be paid. If the faith and the trust that is being held in those institutional entities has to remain. So I don't think when it comes to us being emotional about public debt, I don't think it's out of them. It is on the border. Firstly, when the report came out of this, there was no the National Assembly, the executive, either the Ministry of Finance or DM, did not make enough
Exactly.
on this to say, okay, we are submitting an MTF document of 21 point something billion. This is the purpose of the money before it goes to National Assembly. Even when the National Assembly was reading it and public resource, the public news came out, nobody said this was an MTF. Everybody said Tinubu to borrow 21.4 billion. It is an onus on the government to over-explain and explain. This is what we are borrowing for in the midterm as a plan. But let's also not forget, it's like you are flirting with a lady. You understand? It's part of the problem because you say, give me a license to borrow. What if you use that license? Because by the time you want to use that license, if the federal government wants to take Eurobond tomorrow, it's not going to come back to us for consultation. No. You already have a license from the National Assembly to go and take that. If you want to take a $10 billion Eurobond tomorrow, because you already have approval from the MTF. So this is the point where citizens can interrogate that situation. If citizens don't interrogate and it is approved and it is passed, the federal government might choose to exercise it or not exercise it. And that's why I said it's also a time where people are asking, you removed subsidy, you told us this is going to create savings. NNPC has been deducting billions of dollars for subsidy. Now they do not deduct around $10 billion according to the federal government. They had a $10 billion annual savings from first subsidy, according to your report I read yesterday. So where is that? Where is the equivalent of that money in Naira? That money is coming in Naira. Why are we now borrowing again significantly? We've gotten more money from revenue, but we are not applying fiscal efficiency. We've been following budget reports in recent times. You see how much money the federal government, Ministry of Agri, spending on palace renovation, donation of.
Yes, when I saw that, is it like was it 300 million naira on a palace renovation or so?
So it's a question you're going to ask yourself. You are also not applying fiscal efficiency because at the end of the day, the deficit that is going to happen in that budget, you're going to borrow to cover that deficit, either domestic or either you're going to take external debt. External debt to show up which budget, for what? Is it for palace renovation that we're supposed to do that for, or for street lights, or for boreholes? Those are the equations that you can't, these issues are not happening in isolation. They're all connected together.
And even the cost for the boreholes itself is also questionable when I even saw that. Thank you for raising even the cost of boreholes because I don't know, of course, you're into fiscal governance, so you must have seen what I saw. Also, the cost of boreholes are like billions of naira for, how much does it,
I mean, some of those boreholes, they have to be more detailed from national because some of them might be projects. They might be them joining maybe, but even irrespective. My question is, we have turned the federal government budget like a local government budget. It's not supposed to be. And this is where the moral and the political authority of the president has to stand because there is no incentive for the National Assembly to stop. There were 7,000 projects last year. There are 11,000 projects this year. It could be 20,000 projects next year. There is no incentive for the executive or the National Assembly because they all benefit from all of this. It gives them the opportunity to take that drone-sized picture where there's an array of sewing machines and milling machines and bicycles and tricycles, and in the eyes of the public, you are working. But what you are doing is that you are limiting fiscal opportunity for other things. We have roads to build, we have rails to fix, we have schools, tertiary institutions to invest in, we have tertiary health systems to invest in, like the University College Hospital. we are shortchanging all of those opportunities because of political opportunism. Because if it's by empowerment, I mean, the empowerment that lawmakers and politicians have done and the social protection, I mean, we should not be talking about poverty in this country anymore. But we all know how these things work. Those things are sold right at the entrance of those empowerment programs. Some are so discounted back into the wholesalers. So what are we now saying? We should focus on, we will jig in the macroeconomics and we focus on federal government budget should be about fixing the big pipes, not us worrying about, I mean, I'm not saying don't do constituency projects, but there should be a limit.
Okay.
If the federal government say it be 500 billion, let it be 500 billion. Not everybody now haphazardly putting whatever they have into the budget.
Okay, President Tinubu is not just in focus, of course, for May 29. Other state governors also in focus, because it seems that President Tinubu also tried to get the hard knocks. I've moderated different high panels, and I've even raised these questions before state governors. The president removed fuel subsidy, or like they say, he announced it, President Buhari had removed it. Whatever it is, no fuel subsidy again. States are getting more revenues now. But the states are even saying that inflation is eroding the monies that they are getting, and they are not getting sufficient dividends from what would have accrued. What do you have to say about the subnationals and their way, talking about their fiscal governance? That's one. Number two, which I would like you also to respond quickly to, is around the currency reforms, the monetary policy that we've seen, at least in the last 2 years. There seems to be a kind of calm in the marketplace now. I was reading, was it the writer from the Bois founder, what's his name again? Mr. Please help me. Samad, yes. Mr. Samad, yes, one of the billionaires in the country. And he's saying, okay, that the president has indeed done well. The businesses are, are looking a bit more promising and all of that right now. What do you have to say? Then thirdly, because I want to put all of this together and we'll end the show. Thirdly, the social impacts of what President Tinubu is doing. Poverty is still there in the country. Unemployment, many Nigerians, even from the Vox Pop that we did, so one Nigerian actually said that they have strength to work, but work no day like before again. How do you think that the president should address the social impact of these reforms? Even though he says that the worst is over, he still has 2 years ahead of us, so that the 2 years can actually be better for Nigerians. In just like 4 minutes or so, if you can, to answer all the questions.
So first of all, let me start from the states. It means a lot of things we are missing in that environment. States have gotten significant jump in revenues. I know states were on 6 billion now, like 14 billion. Also, it doesn't mean there is fiscal efficiency. You see a lot of things state governments are funding. I saw in states yesterday, everybody wants to be the conference center, wants to be the government house. There are a few states that have been deliberate about exciting economic activities within their states. Like whatever the AFDB is doing, those are the things I expect states to be involved in. How do I attract commerce, attract industry to my states? Because, the state, when I try to rank state governments, I put them in different layers. There are some that are just comfortable paying salaries, and that's their only thing they trumpet. There are those ones that is comfortable just building roads and bridges and flyovers. I will know that those things are mostly inflated just to benefit them and for their own political opportunity. There are some who are interested in doing that and also invest in education and health. But there's a bigger layer for a state governor to think about. How do I strengthen economic opportunity in my state in the long term?
Okay.
What's going to generate more taxes, more opportunities, more jobs, more employment? Most states are not thinking in that regard. Most things I see, because I've not seen a state to say, the Niger state governor started well. Agriculture, agricultural produce, sesame seed, cocoa, whatever it is, we are going to become the hub for cocoa production. We are going to become the hub for sesame seed. We are going to become the hub for horticulture. The state is supposed to be able to think that way. I've seen that Sarawak has been making a lot of push for lithium end-to-end value chain processing. Those are the kind of things you want to hear from a state governor, because it's not just going to be what you benefit from your term.
Okay,
It's also
Seun,
got the
just
journey.
quickly, the currency issue, the currency reforms, quickly, and social impact in just less
Yeah,
than 1
the
minute.
currency inform is benefited some people and is not benefited some people. I mean, banks are declaring sky high profits. I mean, a lot of people are enjoying that. Stock market is booming for a lot of industrial people. So it's a mixed bag. But on the streets, it's not that situation.
Okay.
It's higher products, social, and there's not enough social protection. The humanitarian and social protection that should have been much more invested in and much more taken care of. There was like a 1 year lag when the minister left and when we now have a new one. The president has not been deliberate about building the social protection framework for some of these policies. Yeah.
I think we'll leave it at that. Thank you very much, Seun, for joining us on today's edition of the show. See you soon.
It's a pleasure, Nancy. Thank you so much.
Yeah, all right. I've been speaking to Seun Onigbinde, the co-founder and director at BudgIT, and we've been looking at President Tinubu's midterm assessment and, of course, the furore around the borrowing. And I hope that government officials watching now, or even our audience watching, do have a better understanding of what is coming. All right, so just before we go, like I mentioned at the beginning of the program, I gave you, an in-depth analysis of President Kinwumi's Adesina's exit from the African Development Bank and incoming president. But as we go today, let's quickly bring you just an excerpt of President Adesina's farewell speech as he bowed out just a couple of hours ago from the African Development Bank, and the new president will be taking over come September 1. That's the much you can take on today's edition of the show. I'm signing out now because after that you won't see my face again. Be the best you can be and be the change that you want to see. Bye for now.
I wish to start by saying thank you. Thank you for electing me as president of the African Development Bank on May 28, 2015, right here in Abidjan in this same hall. And Mr. Mambre, who was there at that time, was a minister right here and is here with us today. Thank you for re-electing me in 2020 to a second 5-year term with a historic 100% votes of all the 81 regional and non-regional shareholders, the first ever such in the history of the African Development Bank. Thank you very much. As I have always said, being president of the African Development Bank for me is not a job, it is a mission. Nothing can be greater than to have been given the responsibility, the resources, the mandate, the support, and the platform to help transform Africa, the continent of my own birth. Thanks to you, African heads of state and government, for your incredible support. I made it the hallmark of my presidency with my staff to carefully listen to and for us to understand the needs of your countries and to do all possible within the available resources of the bank to support your economic and development ambitions. Thank you to the people of Africa who daily are our focus. As I say to my staff, the most important part of the African Development Bank is the development part. We must fast-track Africa's development. I am proud that over the past 10 years, collectively, working together, the African Development Bank has been an accelerator of Africa's development. The high fives of the bank to light up and power Africa, to feed Africa, to industrialize Africa, integrate Africa, and improve the quality of life of the people of Africa have been transformational for Africa. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, in the past decade, the work of the African Development Bank has impacted the lives of 565 million people. This includes 28 million people with access to electricity, 104 million people with food security, 121 million people with access to improved transport, 128 million people with access to improved health services, 67 million people with improved access to information and communications technology, 63 million people with access to drinking water, and 34 million people with access to sanitation. The bank accelerated regional integration with massive support for infrastructure to support the African Continental Free Trade Area. Over the past 10-year period, under my presidency of the African Development Bank, we would have provided, Your Excellencies, a total of $102 billion in support of Africa. This represents 46% of all the financing of the bank since its establishment in 1964. The African Development Bank financed over $55 billion in support of infrastructure, from roads to rails to airports to seaports to digital and communications, health, water, and sanitation. I want to thank the Excellencies and all the President to us actually doing that. So thank you, sirs. In Nigeria, we are implementing the development of special agro-industrial processing zones in 8 states and the Federal Capital Territory. We have mobilized $2.9 billion to support the establishment of these zones in 28 more states of Nigeria. Your Excellencies, we stood by countries when it mattered the most. The countries that were under sanctions to clear their debt arrears to the bank, including Somalia and Sudan, and all of my shareholders are here, and they have been exemplary in understanding and supporting us through that. And today, thanks to their support and the support from the African Development Fund, Somalia is showing tremendous recovery and resilience. Excellencies, thanks to the African Development Fund and the bank's Technology for African Agricultural Transformation, which we call TAT, Sudan, even in the midst of the conflict, is showing remarkable progress towards achieving self-sufficiency in wheat. With our support, it achieves 50% self-sufficiency in wheat in 2023 and 85% by 2024. We are also standing with Zimbabwe to clear its arrears to the bank and other creditors. As champion of the debt arrears clearance process, working with His Excellency former President Chisando, who is here with us, we have supported Zimbabwe, and they are making significant progress. I am pleased that the International Monetary Fund's staff monitor program will soon be concluded. And yesterday we were there. It was such an emotive time to see how far we have come. There's hope ahead. Your bank, the African Development Bank Group, strongly supported by its shareholders, stood strong and innovatively supported Africa as it navigated each crisis. Africa survived. Africa was resilient. Africa grew out of them all, and Africa is still standing and standing tall. Thanks for your support. We stood up for Africa when it mattered the most, the COVID-19 crisis. Africa, the continent with the least room to maneuver, was effectively left alone in the midst of the most challenging global crisis it had ever faced in decades. No vaccines, no medicines, no oxygen, no masks, no gloves. As developed countries got second and third COVID-19 booster shots, vaccines, Africa was scrambling for just one shot for its population. With the support of our shareholders, the African Development Bank swung into bold action and launched a $3 billion social bond, the largest ever in world history at that time, to support Africa. So now unto God, the Almighty God, who held us up and blessed the works of all of our hands at the African Development Bank over the last 10 years. To him be all praise and glory forever. May God bless the African Development Bank. May God bless the African Development Fund. May God bless the Nigerian Trust Fund that together make up the African Development Bank. May God bless the boards of directors, past and present. May God bless the boards of governors, past and present. May God bless the amazing staff of the bank, past and present. My hardworking and innovative senior management teams, and of course the incredible members of the Staff Council, past and present. May God comfort the families of some of my staff that I lost along the way over the past 10 years, especially during COVID. I will carry with me the precious memories of your service to the bank I only wish you were here today. And now, to my own beloved country, Nigeria, and the presidents who nominated and supported me for election twice as president, I owe my deepest appreciation and gratitude. To President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, who nominated me for my first term, and to President Muhammadu Buhari, who carried it forward and backed my election and stood stoically behind me during the challenging times and supported my re-election for second time. Thank you, sirs, most sincerely. My immense appreciation and gratitude also go to Nigeria's former presidents and heads of state, President Olusegun Obasanjo, General Abdulsalam Abubakar, General Yakubu Gowon, General Ibrahim Babangida, former Vice President of Nigeria, Namadi Sambo, Atiku Abubakar, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, the former governor of my state, Ibikunle Amosun, who helped me at various times. They all played major roles in supporting me. And of course, my dear sister, an amazing woman, Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. She was then the Minister of Finance of Nigeria, and she was my indefatigable campaigner-in-chief in 2015. To President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, my president, and the Vice President Kashim Shettima, for your support over the past 2 years, I am profoundly very grateful. Thank you for graciously approving the replenishment of the Nigerian Trust Fund for another 15 years. I understand will be about $500 million. May God bless you, all of our heads of state and government in Africa, for your incredible kindness, support for me and my colleagues over the past.
Thank you for making it up to this minute, watching the video. Thank you all. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Moneyline with Nancy TV. Like, follow all our other social media platforms where we keep you up to speed with fantastic interviews, as well as markets, personal finance, business, and economy information. This is the best place to be. I'll see you all again in the next video.